Great to be with you again. Thanks for having me on.
So a lot of people think about the Chamber of Commerce and they think about, this is a conservative organization that's basically operating off conservative economic principles and promoting free market economics. What's the truth?
Well, the truth is, unfortunately, that over the last 15 to 20 years, they have taken a strong left-wing turn. And you're 100% right. They were started by former President William Taft to basically be what you described, to be an advocacy organization for the free market capitalist system that we've had in this country, and part of what's made us so wealthy and successful. But unfortunately, what they've morphed into is sort of a arm of the far-left progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And increasingly, they're pushing some of the most disgusting, racist, anti-capitalist policies that you can imagine that we've come to expect from the Democratic Party, like DEI, like CRT, that kind of thing.
Well, how did this happen? Certainly this was deliberate and not accidental.
Well, I think what happened is that starting about 25 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce realized that they could assume that they had the support of the conservative movement, because the conservative movement supported business, they supported free enterprise. And so increasingly when they needed something done, the Chamber was looking to Democrats to, get votes or whatnot. And they kind of became the chamber of compromise in a way, because they assumed that they didn't really have to worry about the support of Republicans or conservatives. They have those no matter what they do. And so increasingly they were willing to make deals and compromise with the left to become increasingly more and more left wing in order to get whatever their policy objectives were done on the Hill. But over time, the tail started wagging the dog. That would have been bad enough, but increasingly that included hiring more and more left-wing people to staff and run the organization. And at some level, they're no longer compromising with the left. They're just part of the left. And that's really where we find ourselves today. It's not that they're sitting there thinking we can assume we have the support of conservatives, so let's just go, maybe cut a deal with the Democrats if we hedge on one of this or that issue. If you look at their policy platform today, they're not Marxists. They certainly want to be able to keep their big shareholder earnings. But on social issues, on things that conservatives increasingly care about, populist issues like border security, they are indistinguishable from the Brookings Institution or the Center for American Progress or the DNC. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to put out this woke alert, is I think people, like you said, have an impression of this organization as a conservative advocate for the free market. And this is not where they are anymore. And I think perhaps most startlingly is their push for DEI and racism against whites and Asians and discrimination against men. It's really sickening.
So they had the second annual National Summit on Equality of Opportunity, which on face value, we want people to have equal opportunity, but not equal outcomes. Somehow I'm guessing that it's a misnomer.
That's exactly right. And so they use, nomenclature like that, but nobody wants anybody discriminated. Well, I shouldn't say that. Clearly they do.
Yes.
I don't think anyone on the conservative side wants there to be racial or sex-based discrimination. That's sort of all taken for granted. So they use language like that. But when you look at what they're actually pushing, they're pushing policies like giving out grants, small business grants, specifically for black-owned businesses. In other words, only certain people of a certain race qualify for these programs. If you were to do something like that, I'm not one of these, imagine if the shoe was on the other foot
right.
people, because you can just always say that to complain. But I'm just trying to get people to realize, imagine if there was a group of people who are going to give out small business grants, but only if you're a white male, how much grief they would get. No one would associate with them. They certainly wouldn't be allowed to have the premier landmark property across from the White House in the United States, because we find that kind of behavior disgusting in 2025. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're just targeting black people instead of discriminating in favor of whites. And so this is a really disgusting evolution of the organization, and there's a whole myriad of ways in which they've encouraged their members, their corporate members, to discriminate against whites and Asians and men, anyone who's basically not under the DEI beneficiary banner. They've encouraged their members to discriminate against those groups and discriminate in favor of others. And I thought this was something we put to bed in the 1960s. Chamber of Commerce is basically working to help bring it back. And because of the influence that they have, the U.S. Chamber is one of the most influential organizations in the country. Their word and their pushing of this kind of nonsense, especially in corporate America, makes a huge impact. And so this is something that anybody who's an advocate for free markets and for free enterprise and for no discrimination in hiring and promotion, they should no longer see the Chamber of Commerce as an ally. They should see them as an enemy.
Are they losing membership? Are there corporations that are waking up and saying, hey, we don't want any part of this and stepping back from the association?
You know, it's funny you say that. Sometimes you'll still read stories that they're losing members, and to tell you the truth, I don't know, because they refuse to publish a full list of their membership. So a lot of it, a lot of the stories you see are based on rumors or secondhand conjecture, and I don't know for sure. I would hope that corporations more and more are not seeing a benefit to being associated with these types of activities. And again, that's part of the reason for our Woke Alert, is to help wake their existing members up to the dangers of being associated with them, and to wake people up to the dangers of working for or buying products and services from companies that are members of the Chamber of Commerce. I will say, ironically, they are currently pushing a bill right now that would force consumers, when they're suing corporations, to reveal whether they've gotten litigation financing, meaning whether their lawyers have taken money from a VC firm in order to bring the case. That a lot of these cases can cost tens of millions of dollars to fully sue a big corporation. And they're pushing for disclosure in those types of situations, but they refuse. When they get into litigation, when the chamber gets into litigation, they refuse to list their members. So it's become not only a left-wing organization, but is a truly hypocritical organization as well, and anti-consumer increasingly.
We've got just over a minute left with Will Hild, Executive Director of Consumers Research, on the Woke U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So this happened with AARP, that eventually people got fed up with it, and there's a conservative alternative. Is there any conservative alternative organization that's kind of an anti-Chamber of Commerce?
A number of them have started, and I don't think any have gotten off the ground to the extent that the chamber has. Obviously, the chamber has a huge amount of inertia and status quo thinking to their advantage. And the original one was started by a former U.S. president, so you can understand why they were successful and able to being started. But I think that increasingly, as the chamber wanes in power and people understand how much of a one-sided left-wing organization it is, you're going to see more and more corporations leave. So my hope is that alternatives will either rise up or grow, and we'll finally put this thing to bed, because it just doesn't deserve the imprimatur that it currently holds. Chamber of Commerce is an enemy to the free market.
Yeah, it's really sad, but we need to be aware of that. Will Hild, if people want to be in touch with you online or through social media, tell us how, please.
Certainly. Well, they can follow me on X at Will Hild. That's WILLHILD. And they can visit our website at consumersresearch.org. Consumersresearch.org.
Excellent information. Will Hild, thanks for joining us once again on The Shilling Show.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. That's Will Hild, and we'll be back on the other side with Roland Marks live from Israel. Lots to talk about there, including this horrendous attack in Australia and other things that are going on around the world. It's a disturbing time, but we have to call it out.